Now, in this video, I want to talk to you about budgeting and essentially how to stick to a budget. Because I know it's something lots of people struggle with. They feel they're overspending, not sure where the money's gone. So stay tuned, because you'll find out a few tips and a few tricks that can make sure when you have a budget that you stick to it, and overspending is a thing of the past. So if you're someone who does overspend a lot, there are a few things that you can do. Now, I've got another video where I talk about how to stop spending. That's when you've kind of got a bit of an impulse spending problem. But for most people, it's not quite as obvious as that. It's not a kind of like, oh yeah, I know where the money went. I splashed it all on a night out. I went and got taxis, did all this sort of thing. Actually, for a lot of people, it just kind of disappears. They're not sure where it's going. And they kind of think it's like, how do I stick to my budget? Well, for a start, you've got to have a budget, and that's where I think a lot of people fall flat. They've got like a vague budget, got a rough idea that they know how much comes in, they know how much their rent is and like the main bills. Then after that, I've just got the rest of the money. So it's kind of like, oh yeah, I've got this much to spend, but they aren't keeping an eye on where it's going. They don't actually know in a bit more detail exactly where that cash is going. And that's so important if you want to be able to stick to budget. And that is what a real budget is. It's a real breakdown of those different spending categories. Now, don't be scared by this. It's really, really easy to build one of these up. There are lots of tools that can help you. The Money and Pension Service, which used to be called the Money Advice Service, they've got a really handy tool on their website, which I'll link to in the notes below, where you can literally go through all your expenditure over a year. Or your income over a year as well. And a year is really important. So whether you get paid weekly, fortnightly, monthly, whatever it is, a year is important, because don't forget, you've got expensive things that happen just once a year. Christmas, birthdays, holidays, insurance payments. They're often annual payments as well, aren't they? So doing it on an annual basis is really important, because that'll give you a really good sense of how much money you have got to spend over a 12-month period, and then dial that back down, divide it by 12 to give you monthly, by 52 to give you a weekly amount of cash as well. So really, really important you do that, and it's very, very easy. You might have to get some bank statements along. If you want to do it really forensically, it can help to get like a little notebook out, and every time you spend money, make a note of that. Or there are apps, which I'll touch on in a minute, which actually will break down all your spending as well. But of course, you might be doing some things in cash, you might do other bits and pieces, not really sure, purchases which contain more than one thing for more than one, food and clothes, for example, at a supermarket. Okay, so if you can do as detailed as you can, you've got this initial budget, and you're going to be given essentially three figures: total amount of all the money that's coming in, all the money that's going out, and then kind of like the net difference at the end. It could be that it's a positive difference, that you earn more than you spend. Fantastic. It could be the other way around. It could be that you are spending more than you earn. Now, whatever figure you get there might be some immediate things that you need to do. And that could well be you need to find more sources of income. And that can be through taking on extra employment, little side hustles. Or it could be that you need to cut back. And again, the kind of thing I talk about on the blog, here on the videos on YouTube all the time, there are lots and lots of ways that you can do both of those. Make some more money and save some money to help you hopefully bring yourself in a bit more balance. Now, once you've kind of got a bit more balance to it, there are a few things that are really key expenses here. And probably for most of you, the bulk of that money that's going out, it's going to be going on your rent or your mortgage, or it's going to be going out on your bills. And these are broadly fixed costs. Yes, you can bring down the cost of your mortgage when you remortgage. Yes, you can move potentially to a place with a cheaper rent. Yes, you can switch your energy. So those things can move, obviously, but they are kind of some of those real fixed costs which are essentials. You can't do anything about that. That money has to go out unless you're going to go and move back in with your parents or something like that. Okay, they are fixed costs that are coming out every month. So you know that total, and that is a really, really important. It's the most important one there. Anything else you've got left in that is kind of what's called your discretionary spend, essentially. There are a few essentials in there, don't get me wrong. Things like your supermarket shopping, petrol or train tickets so you can get to work, right? Essentials, because you need to eat. And if you don't get your train ticket, you don't get to work, you don't get your salary. But essentially anything beyond those kind of bills and rent and stuff, you've got a bit more flexibility with that. Okay, so that's kind of a separate pot. And because you know pretty much what those expenses are going to be every single month, and you know you've got to pay them whatever happens, this is the first thing you do to help you stick to your overall budgets, right? Is you want to automate these. You want to get into a routine. Now, what I personally would do is I would set it up just after payday. You've got to allow yourself, I would say 2 or 3 days after payday, because just in case you get paid late, because it's a weekend, a bank holiday, whatever reason, give yourself a little bit of breathing space. So 2 or 3 days after payday, you want to have standing orders going out to all of those essential expenses. So your gas bill, electricity bill, paid. Your rent, paid. Your water bill, council tax. As much as you can, because some things you might not have as much choice on, but as much as you can, get those bills out. Because when they're gone, You are literally left with what I said, that discretionary spend is all that you are left with. And automatically it makes it so much easier. You don't have to worry about getting later in the month thinking, hang on, I've got to get the shopping, I've got to do this, I'd like to go and do this, but I've still got to pay my mobile phone bill, I've got to pay for the broadband, okay? If that money's all gone, you know you don't need to worry about that. And next month when it comes around, you get paid, those bills go out, again, you don't have to worry. Really a simple thing to help you stick to budget on everything else. Now, once you've done that, there are a couple of places you need to look for your money as well and do something about that. First of all, if you've got any debt repayments, you want to make sure they go out first of all as well, because if you can't make them later on, again, they're going to be repercussions. But next you want to look at savings. Now, you might have heard the phrase, pay yourself first. And this is kind of a version of that. What I'm saying obviously is pay all those essentials first, but then pay yourself. And by paying yourself, this essentially is savings. So have a look at how much you think you can afford to put into savings every single month. Now this amount could change. You might find later on as you play with the other bits of other expenses you've got that you can move more money into savings. You might find something comes along, you have to take some money out of that savings. But again, put that money straight away once you pay the essentials on that same day if you can that those bills are all going out. Send some money into a separate savings account, okay? I've talked about this in other videos about savings, which I can link to as well, and you can read those in the show notes, how to stick to your savings goals. This is all part of that, but it helps you budget as well. So you're going to move all your money, essential money is gone, your savings have gone, and they're all in separate accounts, okay? Completely gone. So all that is now left in this last account is the money that you have to spend. Potentially, I take this a step further as well and have yet another account which is set aside for the overspending, which I'll get to in a second. So what you've basically got is your money, your salary, your income, it all comes into account one. From that account, you pay all your bills, you transfer money to a separate account for savings again, and then whatever's going to be left, you transfer that into what essentially is going to be a spending account. Now the reason for doing that is because it helps you understand exactly how much money you've got for all your different bits and pieces. Again, you can do straight after payday, that money goes over, so you know that this money is 100% going to be what you've got to spend. That is your overall discretionary spending budget. So just in case you've got some standing orders that have to go out later in the month or whatever it is from the bills, that is still separate and kept away and does its own thing. Keep an eye on them, obviously. Keep an eye and make sure that you have got the money that's going to go to those bills. But if you're not transferring more than you can afford to spend, then that should be fine. Okay, so now let's go back to the rest of that chunk. But back to that budget that you've produced. Once you've got rid of your bills, got rid of your mortgage, got rid of your savings, that's all catered for. You've got this other chunk left. And this is everything else, as I said. So it's those other essentials like food and travel, but it's also clothes, it's going out, it's entertainment, it's potentially saving for your holiday, all those kind of things. Anything else you've got left is now in this separate pot. Although you've got those indicative figures from the budget you created, again, whether it's that money advice service tool or whether it's just on a piece of paper that you've got down, that's indicative figures for that year. It might be that you want to jig that around. Just because you've spent X amount on going out every month doesn't mean you want to keep doing that, because maybe you want to shrink that down from £100 to 50 quid to free up 50 quid to go somewhere else on something else. You want to save for a deposit to the house, maybe, whatever it is, or you want to spend some more money on clothes. It's your choice, it's your money. As long as you've got it and you're not going into debt or borrowing for it, you can do what you want with it, but set some targets, set some limits. And again, this goes back to that idea that it's difficult to stick to a budget if you don't know really what it is. If you just say, oh, I've got £500 to spend this month on everything, okay, but what does that mean then? If you go out and spend 40 quid in a restaurant and then you get a taxi and all that, what does that mean for everything else? So if you can, set aside a certain amount of money that you want to budget for every other kind of major category that you've got from your normal spending. Again, you can be flexible with this. It can go up, it can go down. Situation's going to change, isn't it? You might find that you get some more money coming in one month, so you can allocate yourself a little bit more that month to certain categories. You might find your savings are emergency savings are used up because the washing machine breaks, yeah? In which case, you need to find some more cash to boost your savings pot. So you might need to cut down on your entertainment budget, whatever it is, whatever you can call it. You can do as many of these as you want. You can have just a handful. You can go really, really minute and have loads of different ones if you want. There are a few things that can help you do this as well. One of them is called the sort of jam jar or envelope method. So this is literally when people would take cash out of the bank and have an envelope. This one's for food budget. This one is for, I don't know, kids' classes. this one is for petrol, and literally you've got these envelopes or jam jars with the money that you've got to spend. And that is quite a useful thing to do. If you really struggle with budgeting, cash can be a fantastic way because you literally can't spend more that's in that envelope. If you are a bit more digital, like you don't use cash very often, you're not comfortable with having all this cash at home, there are bank accounts that let you separate pots out. And they literally call them pots. Monzo's really good at this. Starling does it again. If you don't know these banks, they are relatively new, last 3-4 years. Digital ones, startup ones, but they're pretty good, getting more and more popular. And it's all operated from your phone. There is no branch to go into, no branch to phone up, no support to phone up. But you can literally separate your money out into different pots. Now, obviously, to spend it, you would have to transfer the money back into your main account. So it's not quite as good as these cash methods. But again, really useful way to kind of actually separate everything out. You do that, separate it, then you are not going to spend more than you can afford. You are going to stick to your budget. Now, kind of an extension of using cash, if you can, is to not use cards as often or to leave them at home when you go out. So you know you've only got a certain amount of money to spend when you go out. Your budget is 50 quid for this night. Take 50 quid in cash. You can only spend 50 quid. So there is a little trick there, little things you can use, which really sort of help you be a bit stricter and a bit more kind of aware of exactly what it is you're spending. Tracking is a really important part of this. Now you've got that initial budget, and that shouldn't be something you do once. You should go back to it. You should review it. Monthly is ideal. You can do it more often potentially, or maybe you're doing it bi-monthly every 3-4 months, something like that. But keep track of what you're doing. On a more regular basis, there are apps that help you. Just your normal banking app's going to help for a start, but you could also look at things which kind of aggregate all your different accounts together, but then also kind of identify your spending. They're quite smart now. Don't get it right every time, but for example, if you've been to Greg's, it knows it's food. If you've been to the Odeon, it knows it's a cinema, and it will kind of categorize it into leisure. So you can sort of see roughly where your money is going. And I think that can be quite useful, particularly if you really struggle to keep track of things. And I guess the final trick, the final thing you can do to help you stick to a budget is to talk about it with people. So your family, make sure they're aware exactly how much money has been allocated. In fact, it's good to sort of allocate in discussion, particularly if you're in a relationship and a partner. I'm not saying involve the kids necessarily so much in kind of how much you've got to go there and how much for there. But make sure everybody understands exactly why you're spending money in certain places, but you can't spend it in others. Again, you could do the same thing with your friends. You know, if there's certain things they want to do and it's too expensive, just make it clear to them, let them understand you've only got a certain amount of money available to you for going out this week, this month, whatever it might be, and suggest maybe some alternatives. But if you just say, no, you don't want to do it or can't afford it, they won't necessarily fully understand it. But if they get the bigger picture of your finances, it's going to make it a lot easier for you. So there you go, some basic ways that you can stick to your budget. Do check out my video about how to stop spending, because there are some extra sort of tricks there as well which might help you keep control of your spending, make sure you're keeping it at a level you want to spend. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time, cheers.